Following tough questioning at the Madlanga Commission and the Ad Hoc Committee, we look back at the years since KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi's announcement, a year defined by uncertainty, high stakes, political battles and growing pressure on those at the center of the storm. The Commission wrapped up its proceedings from the year on the 5th of December, from claims of alleged cartel infiltration to disputes over the disbandment of a key police task team. The Madlanga Commission has laid bare deep concerns about policing and accountability in Gauteng. On 17 September this year, the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry commenced at the Brigitte Mabandla Justice College in Pretoria. It was exactly 73 days after the explosive July 6 briefing by KZN Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. The allegations initially set out by Mkhwanazi painted a bleak picture of what is happening within the criminal justice system, not just across the entire country, but specifically in Gauteng. Over the course of the 45 days, 37 witnesses appeared before the Commission, 28 testified in Phase 1, while 9 appeared in Phase 2, which is ongoing. For more, we speak to political analyst Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast and SANEF chairperson Makhadi Tshamano on this. Prof. Breakfast, good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. I'm going to start with you in this conversation. To what extent do you think the 6th of July becomes a pivotal point of inflection in South Africa's democracy?
Well, first of all, I think the president made the right call by instituting a commission to uncover the truth about the claims that were made by General Mkhwanazi. It was a right call because I don't think that as the public we should be gullible or we should be superficial or we should be uncritical when someone shares information. There have been many discourses that have been framed. For instance, there is an argument that no, the claims that were made by the general were made to hold back Senzomtu. I'm not talking about the rightness or the wrongness of that. That's not my argument. But my argument is that I think President Ramaphosa, in as much as sometimes he falls short of making decisions, but I think in this context he made the right call so that the claims can be verified. I also don't see, just to broaden the scope of this conversation, I don't see a duplication between the commission on the one hand and the other work of the committee, because these are two processes.
Yeah, perhaps to also then stay on the political question, because I do think that the political ramifications for this are going to be far-reaching. Do you think the current political actors will find themselves surviving beyond this? And I have in mind here Senzomtu singularly, but I have in mind by and large the Government of National Unity Coalition, because it is a collective effort, at least on their part, to uncover this. If we specifically, if we take a look at what's happening in Parliament's Ad Hoc Committee, but I guess to an extent you have to ask about the ANC itself, because a lot of the actors, Mkhwanazi is a member of the ANC, deployed to cabinet and Parliament by the ANC. What do you think about, what's your view on their survival beyond this?
I don't think that Mr. Senzomtu is going to survive these allegations, because he couldn't give answers when questions were asked to him at the commission. There were critical questions that were made as to why did he rush into making this unilateral decision, because his argument was that no, a task team has to have a time frame, and that if he had allowed that task team to continue, it would have been tantamount to wasteful expenditure. But some of those arguments were questioned. I don't see him surviving. The other issue that you asked about is the ANC. Yes, the ANC is also embroiled into this. The ANC cannot separate itself from this because Senzomtu is a deployee of the ANC. And therefore, if he falls short of getting the job done while holding the position of the minister, it does also paint a bad picture about the ANC. And it's not the first time the ANC has been embroiled into something of this magnitude, because even at the Zondo Commission, the ANC was also embroiled into a state capture. But the commission is critical because there is a symbiotic relationship, in my view, between the security architecture of the country and development. You cannot grow the economy. Who wants to invest in a country whereby there are insecurities which are posing a danger? So this issue of security, it needs to be addressed if as a country we want to promote development for the majority.
Yeah. Makhadi, I want to bring you into the conversation here. I can think of very few countries that would have lay open as barely as we do right now the alleged corruption in its security cluster, in its criminal justice system, and for all to see and witness. What does it say about the strength or the brittlity of our democracy, the fact that we have both the commission and the committee happen, for the most part, by the way, in complete transparency out in the open, of course, within reason? What does it say about the strength of our democracy, but also the seriousness with which we regard transparency as a country?
Oliver, one thing for sure, our democracy is still young, but over time it has been proven that it's a solid democracy. The points which you allude to, they go a long way to demonstrate the willingness to get it to grow, because that's really part of a growing democracy. The reality of the matter is that the issues that have been put forward, if you think of to start with that press conference of the 6th of July by Mkhwanazi himself, that was absolutely brave. And yes, there might have been criticism when the president decided that this was going to go before a commission. And I think with all evidence that has been given so far, it goes a long way to show that indeed there was a need. And I'm not disputing the fact that we might have had challenges with other commissions before this one, but I think everyone now gets to realize that this was much needed. We needed to do this. And I think this really comes with the systems that we have in South Africa. Some people would not do what we have done. And I think this is really good because it puts everyone, everything before everyone to see for themselves.
Absolutely. Now, I want us to get into the meat of some of the things we heard before that. In fact, I want to take you to this because businessman, or at least alleged businessman, Brown Makhodi, who's a highly controversial figure from the Northwest, also testified. He made some of the most extraordinary claims heard by the commission. I want you to take a listen at this.
Are you at least prepared to accept that before us, as we are sitting here today, other than your statement and your say-so, there are no documents that support the version that you are a contact agent and you conducted these investigations? Yes or no?
The question is very unfair, Commissioner. To say I have nothing, as I've just said to you, Commissioners, contact agent, you will never find any identity of a contact agent. You will never. In this whole room, I am a state agent. I'm a contact agent. You will never find a document written contact agent. And as I say, I took
Mr. Mkhwanazi,
senior counsel to the hospital.
Not a document that says contact agent. A document that shows that you conducted these investigations that you claim you were busy with.
No, Commissioners, senior counsel will have to answer on that. He met with my co-handler, and I believe they'll provide my file, because when you work, you report. You give your handler, and you report, you give him information, and all that information stays with your handler. There is no way that I can bring papers and give to you, and logically, unless you say, Commissioner, unless Commission has this belief that I just came here to come and impress people. I said, I did section 252A, it is with Ludi Schnell. The commission found it there. I recorded someone and this happened. The commission found it there. I said there is Boko Haram's thing within the crime intelligence. I didn't tell you where to go. I can tell you now that you must go to the analysis department. You will find that thing there. That's how a contact agent works.
Well, this is probably not the last we'll see of Brian Mkhwanazi before either the Ad Hoc Committee or the Commission. But Prof. Breakfast, to get your thoughts on this, Brian Mkhwanazi's testimony was extraordinary in the sense that it was riddled with what many would describe as make-believe. It was riddled with inconsistencies and contradictions, but it was telling of the nature of political relationships between state actors and non-state actors. What did you extrapolate from it as a political analyst about what it says about the body politic and at least how vulnerable it potentially could be to external infiltration?
Look, I think the testimony of Mr. Mkhwanazi was very incoherent. The arguments that he made were very unstructured. He did not advance logical arguments that can withstand the test of time. I mean, he ended up becoming a joke because he could not make supportive statements to cement the evidence that was needed. Look, I understand that our understanding about political realities is as a result of what is reported to us by the media. But when framing a discourse, it needs to make sense. You can't just make claims and then not provide evidence to substantiate your arguments. That testimony, it was very poor.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think, Makhadi, the impact of Brian Mkhwanazi's testimony could have been, will be, and potentially should be once both the Ad Hoc Committee and Parliament are finished with their work and have to reflect on this in their final reports?
No, I must say, very poor testimony given by Mr. Mkhwanazi, a lot of inconsistencies that we have seen right from day one. I mean, this also can also be traced with the incident about his alleged shooting. You don't need to be a rocket scientist, really, to read into these things. And you can just see, obviously, when you make allegations, at least provide information that backs up the things you are, talking about. So we have not seen any tangible information that supports all the statements that he has provided, either to the police, either to the commission. And to a large extent, one draws a conclusion that really, more than anything, this undermines the work of the commission. No question about it.
Yeah, but look, one may think that Brian Mkhwanazi's alleged shooting was farcical and perhaps even fantastical and a figment of his imagination. But the threat of violence and retribution seems to be real. In fact, I want to take you to this now, because one of the most serious allegations involved the 2022 incident in Brakpan, where a civilian allegedly died during an interrogation. Protected witness Marius van der Merwe testified in camera, claiming he was instructed by Mkhwanazi to dispose, and we're talking here about Julius Mkhwanazi from the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department, to dispose of the victim's body by dumping it in a dam or a mine shaft. Take a listen at this.
Jaco, Kershaw, Etienne was with me at that stage. So the Metro members, they all had a meeting with the soup away from myself and Etienne. Shortly afterwards, they returned to where we were. JD Mkhwanazi said that we needed to throw the suspect's body into a mine shaft or dump it into a dam. As he said this, he looked at me. Viandre then in turn informed me that I must take the body and dump it. They will show me where and that I should relax. Since my vehicle is marked, Viandre said it won't attract any attention. I was directed by Viandra at this stage where to park my bakkie next to the front door. That is as you're coming from the main gate. I was escorted to my vehicle by 2 EMPD members and told where to park it. Jaco Hanekom essentially broke the gate to allow my vehicle entry into the property. I parked my vehicle at the designated spot and walked towards the main gate where I remained until they were finished.
Well, we know that Marius van der Merwe has since died in a hail of bullets in front of his wife and his children in what is retributive violence. But Prof. Ntsikelelo Breakfast, that was damning evidence of somebody blatantly and directly admitting to their own participation in criminal activity on the instruction of a state actor in this instance. Now,
I think...
Sure, go for it.
No, I'm sorry, man, for speaking over you. But I think the worst part of it is that someone got killed because of the testimony that he shared. To me, that suggests something regarding the evidence that he brought to bear. If the things that he shared were off the mark, he would never have been killed. That's my view. So because the rationale behind, killings of this nature is to convey a message that even those who want to step up to the plate and share information, they need to back off, so that the fight against corruption is not won. So it's really quite sad that a person had to be killed like this, and I think that person, in my view, is a hero.
Yeah, Makhadi, I want to bring you in here. The question around witness protection in South Africa is a painful one. We heard from the Zondo Commission how very little is being done around witness protection. But here we had Marius van der Merwe, who actually was offered witness protection, turned it down, and the rationale around him turning it down was that he ran his own security company and that he was capable of protecting himself in that instance. But nonetheless, the question of witness protection still stands because it shows that there's ongoing retribution towards those who choose to stand up and who choose to tell the truth and who choose to whistleblow in this instance. And one must think of Marius van der Merwe as a whistleblower in this instance. What has this done for the climate of whistleblowers and the willingness for more witnesses to come forward and testify? What do you suspect the impact of it could have been?
So let's begin by saying, obviously, a death of anyone, particularly within this context, will always be terrible. And it's regrettable that somebody who offered themselves to give a testimony was killed in this way. It's deeply concerning. Obviously, the commission is still ongoing, not only for the commission, but you have a lot of work that requires investigations in the country where people surely need to step forward and no one should fear for their lives. And it's for this reason I say it's worrisome. But if one was to take a step back and look at the life of Mr. van der Merwe, even before the commission, there were already challenges. You would recall that at some point he lived in the west of, rather in the East Rand, and he had to now move to the West Rand simply because there were issues there, issues that has to do with Zamazama. So it is rather a difficult thing to conclude on at this stage. And I know that his death comes at the time when he had just given a testimony less than, call it what, say 3 weeks, up to the time of his passing. So, but prior to that, there would have been other issues surrounding his life, and not only just surrounding his life, but death threat for that matter. And I think it might just be worthwhile to wait for the conclusive results, rather report as to what really led to his death or what really happened in that context. But yes, I certainly agree. This has a bad taste, particularly when you think of the state of whistleblowers in South Africa, because it's not only him. We've seen it with many, many others, be it those that step up, sometimes even in the place of work.
Yeah.
Think of Mpoma Fulo in the West, in the West Rand. So these are just some of the examples here.
Makhadi, I want to stay on you with this. The response by the state, at least through the Minister of Justice, was that maybe this is a wake-up call for us to reconsider the position that the Ad Hoc Committee and the Commission's work is being done open in the public with full transparency, to the extent that there can be transparency. Of course, we know that witness D, Marius van der Merwe was witness D. His identity was concealed at the time of his testimony, and that he provided his testimony, as they call, in camera. That is to say, away from the public. But of course, the public still heard what he had to say in that instance. The response from the Minister of Justice was to say, maybe we shouldn't have this commission do its work open in public like that, taking away, of course, that transparency. And of course, the chairperson of the commission did not necessarily endorse those sentiments, but said it might be worth considering nonetheless. What are your thoughts on that response by the state?
South Africa's constitution gives guarantee to a right to information. That's just one of the things. Now you have a situation where the minister, argues it differently. I don't think that somebody would have been killed as a result of the testimony that was given through a live broadcast. Media, as we would have seen, they do their best to protect the identity of witnesses. But I don't really think it would have been the case where they died as a result of a live broadcast, as in when the witness was giving testimony. Now, obviously, we can look at ways in which we can do these things going forward as a way of protecting witnesses. And that conversation, I think it remains really open, and something that we must all sit around, same table and engage on these issues going forward.
Yeah. Prof. Breakfast, if you change your principles in the face of the threat of violence, we typically call that terrorism. That violence is terrorism because it changes the way you behave, because you're being terrorized into behaving. Has the state of crime, particularly retributive crime towards those who dare to stand up and speak up, reached a point of terrorism where we are even now considering potentially having the commission do its work in complete private?
Yes, because, there have been threats to people who are taking a stand against corruption and maybe framing it as terrorism. One might be going overboard, but there are threats which are not acceptable, which go against our democratic architecture. The other point that I want to weigh in on is whether the testimonies should have taken place in private. We need to realize that there's this tension, there's a tension between transparency and security, because as the public, I think we have a right to know. Democracy, after all, is about being transparent so that things are not done behind closed doors. However, if then there is a need to limit a particular right, that is also within the ambit of the Constitution, but that limitation, it has to be reasonable and justifiable.
Yeah. Now, we heard a lot of testimony before it about an alleged cartel, a big five, so to speak, and the various actors. In fact, Nhlanhla was one such actor. And I want to take you to this because the commission later shifted its focus from the SABC to the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department. We spoke earlier about Julius Mkhwanazi, who was a member thereof. Allegations suggested deep-rooted dysfunction within the criminal justice system in Gauteng, including claims that Vusimuzi Madlala had effectively captured EMPD. Take a listen at this.
I wanted to report this actually, that my phone has been manipulated
And then I even brought my phone here, so that if maybe the honorable members would like to see that I was arrested on the 14th of May. After the 15, 16, 17 going up there, so my phone was still operating. And then they even took screenshots of WhatsApp chats. And then those screenshots, I believe that that's where they downloaded those messages from. The first payment, it was 300,000. So it was in January this year. And for the reason for me to give me that money is because of he asked for money.
Did former Minister Ntsikelelo lie under oath about those issues in relation to your name?
Yes, he lied under oath.
Thank you.
If he was asking, he was seeking information, why would he even ask me to ask my protectors to take him and his wife to a wedding somewhere in Lanseria? So that there was no way from me sending my protectors to drive him to a wedding. There was no way he will get information from those guys. He don't know them. If he wanted information, he was supposed to all the time make sure that I'm with him.
In my view, Mr. Nhlanhla, you're not a businessman. You're a crook.
I am.
You're a thief, you're a fraud, and you're corrupt. And the problem in this country today is that people like yourself clothe yourself in the respectability of calling yourself a businessman when you are nothing but a dishonest thug.
Yeah, that was another extraordinary couple of days before the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee. And now, Makhadi, this is the very first time we've seen someone who is accused to be at the center of things, accused of all manner of criminality, give testimony while being incarcerated. In fact, it happened inside the correctional services, correctional center facility in Pretoria. Now, of course, Ket Matlala's testimony, many dispute parts of it to be not true, some say it's true. And of course, now we've heard at least conflicting testimony between himself and former Minister of Police, Brigitte Mabandla. And we're going to have to make sense of that. But as the public, how should we make sense of what Ket Matlala has given us? Because there's at least the urge to accept all of it as truth or to reject all of it as a falsity. But somewhere in between, there might be some truth and falsity that we perhaps need to synthesize for ourselves. As the public, how should we process this?
I must say, Oliver, the defining moment for me, you know, in that questioning by Advocate Brackenbach, it was when she, at some point, asked him about his involvement in criminal activities, and he asked the question, like, how? And I think she came really prepared. She had all her evidence. I mean, taking him back to things that happened in 2000, going to 2004, 2006. And what surprised me in all of this, he was not saying no to any of the stuff she was talking about, be it burglary, whether you're talking about car hijacking, all of that stuff. And I think, you know, just that alone, I think it's going to be very difficult even for the people that are linked to Ket Matlala, whether you're talking about Minister Tsenzo Mkhunu, whether you're talking about, you know, former Minister Becky Qele, the monies that are alleged that he would have received. I mean, we've had even from that bite where he talks about money which he gave to Becky Qele. Obviously, I mean, Qele at some point will have to prove himself that he did not take this money. But I must say, the Ket Matlala moment so far, that was a big highlight for me.
Yeah. What did you take away from it, Prof. Breakfast?
Look, I think it was very interesting that he shared the information with us or with the members of the ad hoc committee. But of course, I mean, you know, one has to be critical of that information. But I think the fact that he has a strong social capital and political capital, and he knows people in high places in uniform, to me, that is a matter of a concern. That you give away money as if it's getting out of fashion, 500,000 and this and that. There must be a reason for that.
Can I pause you there, because I think you raised something very important. The instances where he spoke about money being used to give to certain people was for him to, and you almost directly conceded to this, was for the purposes of doing business with the state and having whatever sort of resistance that existed in that circuit to go away. For instance, the large contract that he had for 360 million rand was hanging in the balance. And so he used his own money to sort of bribe, so to speak. And I mean, he got to the point of admitting to that, certain state actors. It tells us a lot about what it takes to do business with the state.
No, of course, I don't think that economic exchange, it was done in good faith. I think the rationale behind was to influence certain decisions. And in my view, that does have an unethical element to influence certain things to work in your favor. Yeah, it's quite unfortunate.
Yeah. Prof. Breakfast, thank you so much for your time. Makhadi, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it, gentlemen, helping us make sense of what was a very dense, complicated, and perhaps even defining moment in the work of the Ad Hoc Committee as well as the Madlanga Commission.